starting with Chiefs 49ers Super Bowl rematch. Kyle Shanahan's squad is favored, but Mahomes has never lost to the 49ers. Andy Reid has the highest winning percentage in the history of the NFL off the bye. And Kyle Shanahan, 0-7 against Andy as an assistant or head coach.
Wow.
That being said, Kyle doesn't want to dwell on the past. Don't believe you. What you got?
For the record, I believe him a little bit. I think because Trent Williams has had some good quotes on this, which was, let's say we win. Are they dropping confetti? Or are we popping champagne? Like, when we've lost to them, it's been a culmination of a season and a celebration for them. If we were to beat them, we don't get to have that same type of thing. So I agree with them in a little bit, but it might give them a little more confidence if they think this is a likely Super Bowl this coming year, that we're going to get the same one. So listen, I have Kansas City, and it's not going to be for the reasons I think people would expect, which is the obvious reason to take Kansas City is Patrick Mahomes, among other things, is the greatest underdog quarterback in NFL history. That's not even a matter of opinion. It's just a matter of fact. He has the best record. He has the best record against the spread. His team scores the most points as an underdog of any team with at least 10 instances. He has the best passer rating.
As an underdog is insane.
Correct, because all of those numbers are insane, and he has been an underdog in 5 of his last 6 playoff games. He was an underdog in the AFC Championship game against the Bengals because his ankle was hurt, in the Super Bowl against Philly, and then all 3 of their last playoff games last year, everything but the Dolphins playoff game. But that's not why they're going to win. They're going to win because Kansas City is going to slowly suffocate San Francisco. Because Kansas City doesn't let you score, and the Niners, if they don't score, lose all the time. And I know that sounds silly, but let me explain it. I heard Acho talking this week, what are the Chiefs going to do when someone scores 35? And the answer is, I don't know, but luckily that's never going to happen because nobody can score 28. The Chiefs have not allowed 28 points since the Super Bowl against the Eagles. Meanwhile, the Niners, since Purdy took over, when they get to 28, they are LeVar Ball. They never lose. And when they don't, they are the Carolina Panthers. And so I don't think, I don't think the Niners are going to be able to hang anything close to 30. And the Chiefs' incredibly effective but very dull running game will carry the day. And so let me just give one more stat and then go. The Chiefs' success rate, which is kind of a smart guy stat, but it basically means, does your run get on 1st and 10, does it get you at least 2nd and 6? Or on 3rd and short, does it pick it up? The Chiefs are number 1 in the NFL in success rate running the ball while being dead last in explosive runs. They don't have a single run by a running back longer than 11 yards. So they're just basically getting 4 or 5 yards every time. And that's what I think they're going to do. And it's going to be a boring game, and Kansas City's going to win. And then on Monday, people are going to be like, what's wrong with the Chiefs offense? And it's just who they are at this moment in time.
I got the Niners.
Ooh.
And look, none of us expect the Chiefs to go undefeated. They win this game, I think people might start talking about it, Nick, going 17-0. And I think most people, and maybe even you, think the loss or a couple losses will come to teams that they may overlook. They've lost to Indianapolis, Denver last, like a middling team that they just overlook, and it's that team's Super Bowl. But I think the Niners win this game because it is more important to them.
I buy that.
And I don't think the Chiefs are taking them lightly, obviously, but the Niners need this. Like, they really need this. Even though Trent Williams has said rightly it's not going to be confetti from the sky should we win, but they need to win this game. I don't think it'll be the Super Bowl matchup, but if it is, do you really want to go into that 0-5 against the Kansas City? You've lost to them twice in Super Bowls. You had teams you thought were better. You had big double-digit leads in the fourth quarter and still lost. And if they can't win this when Kansas City's offense hasn't looked great, I think if they lose this game, it's not going to ruin their season. But I think this will sit with them. They got the Cowboys after that, so maybe they get a good win after that. But I just think that it will be a real drain on their spirit because you just keep losing to this team. And so I do think the Niners win. I think for the Chiefs, if they lose, Nick, I don't think it's a big deal to them. They've lost to Buffalo in the regular season, beat them in the playoffs. They've lost to Cincinnati in the regular season, beat them in the playoffs.
They lost the Super Bowl rematch last year.
Right, exactly. Well, and that's the thing, because a lot of people are talking about Andy Reid off the bye. So last year when they lost to Philadelphia, he was off the bye, and the Eagles still beat him. He's just 1-2 when both teams have a bye. And San Francisco's, it wasn't a bye, but they got a extended rest, about 10 days off, because they played on a Thursday night. So I just think it's more important to the Niners. They're at home. We know Kansas City's offense isn't quite what it was. And the key, I think a big key, Nick, will be, can the Niners run on the Chiefs?
And I don't think listen, the Niners Wilds run on everyone to a degree.
They were actually able to run. They're the one team that ran for more than 100 yards on the Lions. So the Lions have one of the best rush defenses in the league. So I think they'll be able to run well enough to set up the play action. I got 23-20.
23-20?
23-20 San Francisco.
Ooh, okay. This is why I said I didn't quite believe Kyle Shanahan. First of all, anytime you start talking about, I don't think about the past, that means you probably are thinking about the past. That storyline doesn't come up in every game. So Josh pulled this. Not only has he not had success against the Chiefs, against the AFC studs, Chiefs, Ravens, Bills, not great. 0-7, scores 22 points, gives up 33, and turnover differential of -7. That includes Super Bowls and everything else. Here's the other thing, and I'm going to show one other graphic that I think this got solved. Patrick Mahomes said, you know what, we need to solve the turnovers, which he's largely in charge of, so I think that's going to solve. He's like, we got to work on the red zone. So this graphic belies the talent of the coaching staff. It belies the talent of the quarterback and the historical success of those two. Patriots, of course. Dolphins don't have Tua. Cowboys are a little bit funky. But the Chiefs, I just think he's going to figure that out. And once those field goals turn to touchdowns, so I think a lot of the what's wrong with the Chiefs just go away if they just figure out the wrinkle in the red zone inefficiency.
So I'm going to add one thing to that, because I am one of the reasons I've been frustrated with you guys know how much a lot of my media consumption is podcasts. I listen to probably more podcasts than I should, just throughout all day, every day.
I agree with that. We go upstairs and Nick is listening
the moment
to a
the show's over. It's kind of how I could try to consume, follow the whole league the way I do. And I think once again everyone's underrating the Chiefs, and it irritates me. Because I think the Chiefs are far and away better than everybody. I think the Chiefs right now are in a situation where they have played the league's third hardest schedule. They have dealt with as many injuries to high-level contributors as almost any team in the league. They have been awful in the red zone. They have been awful from a plus-minus. They're bottom 5 in the league in plus-minus. And their quarterback is playing, by his standards, the worst football of his career. And they're undefeated.
Right.
And the injury stuff those are long-term injuries. I don't think anyone thinks they're going to be a bottom 5 red zone team, a bottom 5 turnover differential team, and that Mahomes is going to maintain playing at a level of like the 16th best quarterback in football. And so even if they don't become top 5 in any of those categories, I think they have a whole nother gear to get to. I think the bye should help it out, so I like the Chiefs a lot in this spot.
Meanwhile, the 2-4 Jets favored against the 4-2 Steelers in Pittsburgh. Devontae Adams making his debut. Maybe Russ makes his Steelers debut. Mike Tomlin refuses to say, but George Pickens said, yeah, it's Russ's first start. Thank you, George. Sure, that was good for the organization.
Unless Tomlin told George it was his first start, knowing George would accidentally say it, and it's actually Justin Fields.
Here's the numbers on the dire situation the Jets are facing. Since 1990, if the Jets win, hey, 3-4, make the playoffs 19% of the time. If they lose, bro, your Jets would fall to 2-5, which would bring their chances of making the playoffs historically down to about 6%. So is the Jets season over with a loss?
Look, I picked them to win the AFC East. I'm not just going to I'll hold out hope for as long as it's like mathematically feasible. But if they lose this game, I mean, it's just about over. I mean, first of all, you're 2-5, which is a big hole to jump out of. And Buffalo, I think they got a game they should win. They're heavy favorites.
9.5-point favorite against Tennessee.
Yeah. So if they're 5-2 and you're 2-5, it's going to be hard to win that division and maybe even get into a wild card. But more importantly, we said the same thing about the Bengals if they lose to the Giants. If they lose to the Steelers, who are a solid to good team, when you are absolutely desperate, like I've said it, I think the last couple weeks for the Jets, but they are desperate.
Yeah.
And they've they've pulled every card, right? You fired the coach, didn't quite work. Now you've brought in a ringer who's comfortable with your quarterback. If that doesn't work, the only card left to play is sign Hassan Reddick after that. Like,
Ben's the quarterback. That's the other thing people do.
Yeah, but that, they can't do that. And you only got Tyrod Taylor waiting in the wings. So it just would, like, you are desperate. You think, like, and these things matter because you can look at them and say, okay, now we're going to get going. Like Rodgers has said, this will help the offense and it'll kick us off on a run. Well, if you lose this game, when's the run coming? Because I said it earlier in the week, they don't have any world beaters left on the schedule, but they got a lot of teams that are equal to Pittsburgh. Mm-hmm. So if you can't beat Pittsburgh when you're desperate, how are you going to beat most of these other teams? Even the Cardinals, the Colts.
Of course.
The Dolphins when they get healthy with Tua, the Rams when they're healthy. Like, it just will, spirit-wise, it'll crush them. And it probably would mean the end of their season.
Yeah, and it would all, listen, I want the Jets to lose this game purely because I want everyone to acknowledge what is so patently obvious to me. They're not good. I'm frustrated that all the Jets conversations are phrased like, what's gone wrong? What's the issue? When the answer is, I don't know, man. It's the same issue that bad teams have. They're bad. Like nothing weird is happening. They're poorly coached. I said that before the year. Their first team to fire their coach. They don't have a cogent offensive attack. Said that before the year. Oh, we fixed it with Todd Downing. Y'all connected on a Hail Mary and scored 20 points. And everyone was like, that was a great game. And all of it was like one of the bright sides was the offense looked crisper. Y'all scored 13 points other than the Hail Mary. And everyone's like, that's the best it's looked in forever. Oh, last year, they won 7 games with that level of offense.
Hey, that's Bruce take.
I understand, but it's not just Bruce take. I'm not trying to attack Bruce.
The truth,
but here's the truth. That's the exact level of offense you have this year. Through 6 weeks, look at the numbers. Last year's team had a better record. Your points are identical. Your yards per play are identical. You have 1 fewer giveaway and 1 fewer win. By the way, last year's team started 4-3.
Yep.
But here's the thing, Nick. Even you, who didn't expect a lot from Rodgers, you expected more than Zach Wilson. Is that fair to say?
Yes, definitely.
And look, I will go to my grave saying they have talent offensively. The defense is fine. Garrett Wilson as your number 2, that's pretty darn good. Now you got Devontae. The backfield is a good running back room, and the offensive line is okay. So it's Rodgers is not close to being Rodgers, is what it is. And if he can't get closer, then it's going to be a long season.
Just real quick.
Yeah.
This also, if they lose, guys, it is potentially Rodgers' last moment on the marquee. Remember, this season was front-loaded with those nationally televised games. Yep. They have a Thursday night game against Houston in a couple weeks, and right now they have a Sunday night game in about a month, Jets-Colts, which has flex written all over it if they don't get it together. We've talked about the AFC being open after the top teams. Well, Denver is one of those teams. Denver beat them head-to-head and is 4-3. So they have to have a better record than Denver. If they lose to Pittsburgh, it'll be one of those teams. Have beat them head-to-head, be 5-2. They lost to Buffalo, who we think is about to be 5-2. Like, the hole will be too big, and the Jets will be what they've always been, which is the Jets. And I think they're going to lose.
And then he may retire eventually.
Yeah.
At the end of this year.
The end of the year.
Because if they don't have a good season,
that'll be the story Monday.
If they don't
one of
have
the
a
stories
good season,
Monday is Aaron Rodgers got a half dozen or so games left in his career.
Oof.
9 games.
If they don't have a good year, why come back?
Yeah, that's right.
Finally, Eagles favored in New York against the Giants, 1 p.m. on Fox. Saquon looking for revenge on his old team, while the Eagles are also just looking to get on the board early. Sirianni and staff still have yet to score in the first quarter. So how badly does Sirianni need this win?
Well, I mean, if they lose, none of us will be shocked if Monday, about an hour before we go on the air, we're like, oh my God, switch the rundown up, Nick Sirianni got fired. Last week when we were talking Cowboys-Lions, and I said, and we were talking about if the Cowboys won the game, and I kind of got it, upset's the wrong word, but I said to Brew, I was like, then why play the games? Right. And Brew said back to me, he was like, well, what about the Eagles? Like, you know what I mean? If the Eagles win, you won't think they're good. And I thought about that all weekend, to be honest with you, because it was a good, and I was like, wait, Brew's right. If the Eagles won, I wouldn't think they were good. And I was like, why is that, or whatever it is? And I was like, oh, it's because it's not just about, obviously, this part of this season for the Eagles. It's what we've seen from them since the supernatural funk, which then made me go to, so those teams that have been as bad as Philly since the funk started, what do they have in common? Because we can show them to you. And the Panthers fired their coach. The Patriots fired the greatest coach ever. The Titans got rid of Mike Vrabel. The Jags, we all think Doug Peterson might not make it back from England. Yep. And then there's Philly. So I think they're lucky this game's not in Philly. I think they're lucky that the home crowd is not there to give it, to give it to Sirianni. But if you lose to the Giants, who the whole world saw on national TV last week look awful, I think it can cost. Right, I think it can cost Sirianni his kick.
I don't know that it'll cost him his gig. It might, because they could have justified firing him after the win last week. Yeah,
for yelling
what he did, right, what he did with the fans. But he has been, this is not new with Nick Sirianni, you know as well as anybody. He's been criticized since his opening press conference as the head coach. Yeah. All right? But the thing is, the reason he's been able to survive it to this point is because he's won. Yep. He has to win at a high level. When you have that type of wild, unconventional personality and you do these crazy things, you better win. Because if you don't win, people will pound. Belichick even, which wasn't wild and unconventional, but the way he dealt with the press, if he didn't win, he would not last. That's part of why Cleveland did fire him, because the media there was just pounced on him. All right, and so Sirianni has to win because of the things he does off the field or his personality, whatever. But the team in general just needs to win. It won't kill them record-wise in that division. They'll be 3-3 tied with the Cowboys. Right. But they have not played really well. They got one good win out of their 3. It was the first one against the Packers. Yeah, but that, you know,
that
Packers
is a good
are a good
win.
team.
It's a good win, but I just kind of, it's like,
it was weird. It's in Brazil.
It was a strange,
Friday.
right.
It's weird.
I think we all think the Packers are better than them. But New Orleans wasn't a good win. You scored 15 points. Cleveland was about as bad a win as you can get. Yeah. So they just need, and they do have talent, especially offensively.
100%.
So they need to have a really good win for their spirit going the rest of the way.
Sirianni, 5-2 against the Giants in his career, so maybe.
Thanks for watching. Subscribe here to get more from the show and to check out clips from other shows on FS1.